In the headlines this evening, the two-day Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit comes to an end. Participating countries adopt a joint communique vowing to bolster political and economic relations. Korean Air CEO Cho Yang-ho apologizes for his daughter's so-called outrage, but will this be enough to quell the public outrage? Cho Hyun-ah faces tough questions from aviation authorities. CIA Director John Brennan holds a rare press conference. Unlike the recent U.S. Senate report, he says his agency's interrogation techniques worked in obtaining useful information. Stay tuned for these and more coming right up. Very good to have you with us. Welcome to Early Edition at 6 from our studio in Seoul. I'm Na-hyun Kyung.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. Leaders from ASEAN countries and President Park Geun-hye adopted a joint statement today at the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit.
A big part of that statement outlines a set of agreements aimed at bolstering their economic, cultural, and social ties. For our first story, here's our Hwang Sung-hee.
Noting that the launch of the ASEAN Economic Community next year will become a new growth engine for the global economy, leaders of South Korea and 10 Association of Southeast Asian Nations agreed to bolster economic cooperation. In a joint statement following the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit on Friday, the leaders vowed to work towards swift negotiations for additional liberalization of the Korea-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement.
이를 위해 2015년 말까지 목표로 하고 있는 한 아세안 FTA 추가 자유화 협상의 순조로운 진행과 무역 원활화 및 제도 개선을 통해 현재 1,350억 불의 교역 규모를 2020년까지 2,000억 불로 확대키로 하였습니다.
President Park Geun-hye promised to simplify visa regulations for Southeast Asians entering Korea from the first day of 2015 and noted a new deal on two-way consular cooperation.
또한 양측은 인적 교류 연 700만 시대를 맞아 관광객, 기업인, 정부 인사, 유학생, 그리고 근로자 등 양측 국민에 대한 영사 협력을 강화해 나가기로 하였습니다.
The South Korean leader outlined Seoul's commitment to share its experiences with the so-called Semaul movement, which is an initiative that dates back to 1970s and is credited with helping modernize the nation's economy. She also vowed to invite about 100 people from the science and engineering fields each year for training programs in Korea. And to carry out these projects, President Park said South Korea will increase its contribution to the ASEAN-South Korea Cooperation Fund by $2 million to $7 million starting next year. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News, Busan.
And their joint vision for a strategic partnership also discusses some other pressing issues as well.
That's right. They will try to amp up efforts to work to meet both the traditional security challenges like North Korea's nuclear program and others such as climate change and disaster management. Here's our Cho Hyun-ah with more.
Looking ahead to the next 25 years of their ties, the leaders of Korea and the ASEAN have agreed to work together to become a driving force for peace in East Asia.
동북아와 동남아의 안보가 서로 밀접히 연관되어 있다는 데 인식을 같이 하고 양 지역에서의 지속 가능한 평화와 안정을 조성하기 위해 안보 관련 문제에 대한 협력을 더욱 강화하기로 하였습니다.
On North Korea, the two sides stressed the need to reconfirm Pyongyang's willingness to lay down its nuclear arms. The 10 ASEAN members then endorsed President Park's policies towards the north, which include nuclearization and reunification of the two Koreas, first by way of trust building and non-political cooperation. South Korea and the ASEAN also decided to include human rights and democratic freedom on the agenda for their recently launched security dialogue. The 11 leaders in Busan spent some time on non-traditional issues as well.
The future challenges are not only related to current traditional security challenges, but also on non-traditional challenges such as climate change, environment issues, disaster management, and maritime security.
President Park, for her part, laid out a business model to counter the effects from climate change and natural disasters, calling on her counterparts to seize the chance and turn problems into opportunities. The president suggested joint projects to provide eco-friendly energy to remote regions of the ASEAN, help spur their agricultural production, and prevent damage from disasters. Back in Seoul on Saturday, President Park will wrap up her ASEAN diplomacy in summit talks with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen. The two leaders plan to focus on creating a more favorable environment for Korean companies looking to expand into Cambodia. Cho Hyun-ah, Arirang News, Busan.
Well, the power of the Korean wave, or Hallyu as it's commonly known, has been a force in bringing about closer ties with nations throughout Southeast Asia.
The first ladies of visiting ASEAN members got a chance to experience the culture of Hallyu firsthand. They got some star treatment, we hear, literally. Connie Kim has more.
Ask someone in Southeast Asia what comes to mind when you mention Korea, and the answer is more than likely to be the Korean wave. The region of more than 60 million people was the first outside of Korea to embrace K-pop music back in the late 1990s. The first ladies of the ASEAN member nations got a look at the place where the wave originated during this week's Korea-ASEAN Summit. Greeted by popular Korean actor Chang Geun-suk at the Busan Cinema Center, the ladies enjoyed clips of popular Korean movies that were made especially for the event. They said K-pop, K-dramas, and K-movies had captured the attention of the younger generation back home, and they look forward to what's coming next.
They like something very new, very exciting, very vigorous, energetic, and I think this is why they're very well received by the young ones in Malaysia.
As you may know, Korean movies are quite popular in Cambodia. Korean movies also play a role in educating Cambodians, as they view these Korean movies as role models for their lives.
It's one reason that the number of tourists from Southeast Asia has been on a steady rise in recent years. Last year, the total reached 1.5 million. Citing cultural similarities as one of the main reasons the Korean wave has gained so much popularity throughout Southeast Asia, the first ladies of the ASEAN member nations have expressed hope that the influence of soft power will continue to strengthen cultural ties between Korea and the region. Connie Kim, Arirang News, Busan.
Business partners face a one-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Na Hyung-kyung and Daniel Che.
Arirang News.
Arirang News. Arirang News. On Early Edition at 6.
Cho Hyun-ah, now the former vice president of Korean Air, facing questions from Korean aviation authorities over her so-called outrage. This comes after her father, also the CEO of Korean Air, held a press conference earlier in the day and apologized for everything. Here's Kim Min-ji for this report.
Korean Air's now former Vice President Cho Hyun-ah appeared before aviation safety inspectors for questioning Friday afternoon. Speaking to reporters, she apologized for her actions and said she would cooperate with the investigation.
I am sorry, and I will sincerely cooperate with the probe. I will also apologize in person to the chief purser and cabin crew involved.
Cho initially refused to show but changed her mind after prosecutors raided the headquarters of the nation's flagship carrier over concerns of evidence tampering. Her appearance comes after her father, the CEO of Korean Air, Cho Yang-ho, apologized on her behalf at a press conference and vowed that such an incident would not happen again.
대한항공의 회장으로서 또한 조연아의 애주로서 국민 여러분의 너그러운 용서를 발산하는 바랍니다.
Cho was thrust into the international spotlight about a week ago after making a Korean Air flight from New York to Seoul turn back to the gate after a flight attendant served her nuts in the package instead of on a plate, apparently not following protocol. The government is currently investigating whether her actions broke air traffic safety laws or other regulations. She has also been barred from leaving the country. Cho first stepped down from her duties related to flight services over the backlash, but later offered her full resignation. She will also quit all her positions at affiliates of Korean Air. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And one of the questions CEO Cho answered in that press conference was whether he will keep his title as the chief organizer of the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. And he said yes. As a matter of fact, he released a statement today as the organizing committee head. Cho declined the International Olympic Committee's suggestion to consider holding some events in countries outside the host city, saying the proposal was not prudent. He went on to say he appreciated the IOC's cost concerns, but added construction in Korea had already begun on all the venues. The safety concerns at a new landmark in southern Seoul are piling up. Lotte Cinema says one theater at Lotte World Tower has been temporarily closed after moviegoers complained of the floor and screens shaking as well as odd noises earlier this week. The company said safety inspections would be conducted to determine the cause, but concerns are mounting because this is not the first incident. Last month, firemen were called in after a visitor reported similar issues. In fact, there had been concerns over the increasing number of sinkholes appearing near the multi-purpose complex even before the partial opening in October. And just a couple of days ago, water was reportedly leaking from its aquarium. What will be one of the tallest skyscrapers in Asia is still under construction. The full opening is set for 2016.
Moving on to other stories. South Korea's Unification Minister Ryu Il-jae is on a trip to Washington. There, he stressed to reporters that Seoul's plan is to peacefully reunite the two Koreas, not to absorb Pyongyang. For more, here's our Park Ji-won.
Speaking to reporters in Washington Thursday, South Korea's Unification Minister Ryu Il-jae said strained inter-Korean relations in the long term are not beneficial to either side, and the time to change things for the better is now.
Next year will mark the 70th anniversary of the nation's liberation from Japan, and it's time to make a breakthrough in inter-Korean relations.
The minister said President Park Geun-hye's envisioned unification drive is based on the North and South working and growing together. He stressed that South Korea's push to unify the two Koreas is not an attempt to absorb the North. Earlier this year, the South Korean president said unification would be a bonanza for the two Koreas. But North Korea denounced President Park's drive, saying she wants to absorb the North into the South.
I once again want to reiterate that our government's envisioned drive is a peaceful unification, not an absorption plan.
However, Minister Ryu said South Korea cannot turn a blind eye to North Korea's nuclear ambitions and human rights issues. So efforts to solve those issues will go hand in hand with Seoul's drive to improve inter-Korean relations. During his stop in the U.S. capital, the South Korean minister met with various U.S. officials, including chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee Ed Royce, where he explained South Korea's unification policies and asked for their support. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Not to be confused with our reporter Park Ji-won, the next story is about South Korean opposition lawmaker Park Ji-won. He has asked to visit North Korea next week to mark the 3rd anniversary of Kim Jong-il's death. In a phone interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News, the Kim Dae-jung Peace Center said Friday that the lawmaker would like to visit the North's Kaesong Industrial Complex next Tuesday to deliver his condolences on behalf of former First Lady Lee Hee-ho. South Korea's Unification Ministry is considering the request. The proposed visit is considered a response to condolence flowers sent by current leader Kim Jong-un on the 5th anniversary of former South Korean President Kim Dae-jung's death in August.
On the economic front, private institutions in Seoul forecast that the Korean economy will expand by 3.7% next year. This is the median for 17 private research institutes. They also believe that growth will be slower in the first half of 2015. Now, the forecast from foreign investment banks is lower at 3.6% for next year, citing the weak Japanese yen's effect on Korean exports and weak consumer sentiment. All of those are lower than the government's 4% goal and the 3.9% set by the central bank. The smartphone market has been saturated for quite some time now, but the aftermarket for smartphones is still a booming industry. At least that's the case here in Korea. Arirang's Shin Se-min has more.
Virtually everyone has one. These little smartphones that allow us to be connected and to connect. With up to 1.4 billion smartphones having been sold worldwide, it has created another ecosystem that is expanding quite rapidly.
From portable rechargers charging the device practically anywhere, to Bluetooth headsets for hands-free phone calls, and smartphone gloves that allow users to use the screen without having to take them off. These are just a handful of the products driving the smartphone accessory aftermarket.
I use a sturdy and fashionable case to help protect my phone, but I'm here to check out some other products, including the Bluetooth-related devices.
With just a few taps, this Bluetooth speaker is hooked up and you're ready to go.
Thinking out loud, maybe we found love, right?
According to US-based ABI research, the global smartphone accessory aftermarket will be worth more than an estimated $50 billion by the end of the year. The market for these accessories is increasing, despite smartphone shipments dipping as the market reaches maturity. Growth in the smartphone market is forecast to edge down over the next few years to just 6% in 2018. An industry watcher says that while smartphone sales are going one way, the accessories market is going the other.
It's not rocket science. Technology is being applied to things we already use. It's not really technical, so they can be created by individuals, and this diversifies the market.
While the analyst thinks camera-related products and accessories have the biggest room for growth, he says it's just a matter of how big the market will become. Even the industry's biggest players like Samsung and LG Electronics are hoping these kinds of innovations will boost their profits even as the smartphone market slows. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
In defense of the CIA's highly questionable interrogation techniques that made headlines for the wrong reasons, the director of that organization speaks up. Through a press conference, the CIA chief said some tactics were beyond authorization, but generally what some label torture are enhanced interrogations techniques, according to him, deemed necessary at times to ultimately save lives. Our Connie Lee has more on this report.
The director of the CIA defended his agency in a rare TV press conference on Thursday.
The detention and interrogation program produced useful intelligence that helped the United States thwart attack plans, capture terrorists, and save lives.
According to John Brennan, that includes useful information that led to the death of Osama bin Laden. However, on the question of whether some of that information was obtained without the use of brutal torture sessions or enhanced interrogation techniques, otherwise known as EITs, Brennan said that was unknowable.
Let me be clear. We have not concluded that it was the use of EITs within that program that allowed us to obtain useful information from detainees subjected to them.
The director's statements come just 2 days after the U.S. Senate released a report that said the CIA acted more brutally in its torture techniques of detainees after the 9/11 attacks than it previously acknowledged. Some of the brutal methods described in the report were waterboarding, severe beatings, and a method that led to one detainee to freeze to death. Although the CIA chief said the majority of his agents followed legal advice, he did admit that some actions were not authorized.
In a limited number of cases, agency officers used interrogation techniques that had not been authorized, were abhorrent, and rightly should be repudiated by all.
One U.S. lawmaker has called for Brennan to quit, while the United Nations and human rights groups are asking for the prosecution of U.S. officials involved in the CIA program from 2001 to 2007. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
In Hong Kong, traffic is flowing again where tents once stood. Hong Kong police made good on their promise Thursday to clear out the main protest site in Admiralty, marking an end to at least this chapter of the pro-democracy sit-ins. Some 7,000 officers were deployed to remove barricades and sweep up tents and other debris left behind. They were met with peaceful resistance. About 200 people were arrested for obstruction and unlawful assembly. Among the detained were student leader Nathan Lau and media tycoon Jimmy Lai. Demonstrators vowed to continue their protests through other forms of civil disobedience, recognizing that it would be a long road to win their demands for free elections in the territory's leadership polls.
Switzerland is halting an Ebola vaccine trial after a number of participants complained of side effects. The University of Geneva Hospital says 4 of their 59 test volunteers had mild joint pain in their hands and feet. Swiss researchers will stop administering the vaccine next week to find out what may have caused the issues. They also said they will work with others who are testing the vaccine in the United States, Canada, and Germany. The Ebola virus so far has killed more than 6,000 people in West Africa since early this year. A new study says that infections resistant to antibiotics will kill more than 10 million people each year by the year 2050. That's more than the number of people who will die from cancer. The report made for the UK government by economist Jim O'Neill said the global death toll will continue to rise if action is not taken. Currently, about 700,000 deaths occur from infections resistant to medicine. The study was commissioned earlier this year amid growing concerns of drug-resistant superbugs like new strains of E. coli, malaria, and tuberculosis. Most deaths from these superbugs are said to be in Asia.
The United States has developed a new weapon, something that seems straight out of a James Bond villain's backyard. It's a laser gun that could change the way battles are fought and won. The system is currently being tested in U.S. Navy ship, and the plans call for full deployment by the year 2020. For this report, we have our Kim Hyun-bin.
Target, locked and loaded. The U.S. Navy's newly developed laser weapon demolishes an enemy target at sea in a training exercise. This time, it locks onto an enemy drone and fires a 30-kilowatt laser. In just 2 seconds, the UAV is taken down. The laser weapon was recently deployed on the USS Ponce in the Persian Gulf for a 4-month test run, and the results, officials say, were phenomenal. It's lifting hopes of a new type of defense against cheap anti-ship arms. The Office of Naval Research says the $40 million laser weapon is the first directed energy weapons system in history. Rear Admiral Matthew Clunder says it is fully operational on the USS Ponce and is used daily in training drills. The deployment of the weapon comes as the Pentagon is worried about losing its technological edge that enabled the U.S. to stay one step ahead of its rivals on the battlefield for decades. Many countries such as China and Iran have developed long-range missiles and accurate anti-ship missiles in recent years. The Navy plans to enhance the power of the laser system to 150 kilowatts, which would theoretically give them the capability to destroy a multi-million-dollar missile for about $1. That more powerful laser is currently in development and is expected to be deployed by 2017. If proven effective, it could be widely produced and integrated on numerous ships. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, it's Friday night, but I guess Mother Nature is hinting us to stay indoors. It's pretty white out there with a lot of snow.
Right. Am I the only one worried about the traffic already? I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
All right, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center to see how much snow we are actually expecting. Michelle.
Good evening, guys. The snow started falling in the west and now it's expanding to more of the country, including here in Seoul. Now, the snow is expected to fall on and off throughout the night, but eventually we're expecting 1 to 3 centimeters in the most regions, including here, while the western provinces will see more. Now, our weekend is expected to turn bright once again, except in Chungcheong provinces and the southern regions, where there will be continuous snow, and by Sunday, most of the snow will be clear out, but colder temperatures are expected. And now to our readings for tomorrow. So we'll start off the Saturday morning at -7 before reaching up to -2 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will reach a bit higher at 1 and 4 degrees. And to other regions, Jeju Island peaks to 6, Dokdo is down to -1, while Namkyeongang reaches way below at -12. Well, that's all for now, Michelle Park, and have a wonderful Friday evening.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that does it for us this week. Have a great start to your day or a safe drive home. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Nai Hyun-kyung. Hope everyone will have a happy weekend and a warm weekend. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye for now.